My son revealed an unexpected surprise, an envelope containing an incredible 900,000 debt. Emma couldn't breathe as she stared at the letter in her trembling hands. A 900,000 debt? How could this even be real? The cozy walls of their living room, filled with family photos and memories, suddenly felt like a prison closing in on her. Thoughts raced in her mind, colliding like cars in a wreck. She had dedicated her life to her patients, the long, grueling shifts at the hospital always to provide for her son, Jake. Yet, how could she have missed this? Jake had shown signs of struggle, the drop in his grades and the late-night hours spent in front of his laptop. But this? The torment of her love for him clashed with the anger bubbling to the surface within her. A mother's intuition had been whispering, warning her of something darker. As she opened the envelope, it felt like the whole world threatened to collapse around them. She pictured the pride on his face when he landed on the varsity basketball team, how he'd laugh with friends, dream of a future that shimmered just beyond his reach. And now, it was all tainted. "Jake," she called, her voice barely holding. He appeared moments later, scrolling through his phone, oblivious to the storm brewing in their small home. Emma's heart raced. How could she balance the need for truth with the instinct to protect her son? Each beat echoed her fear. Was this reckless act a cry for help or a betrayal she could never forgive? "What's wrong, Mom?" he asked, glancing up with that familiar innocence. She thrust the letter at him, her hands still shaking. Jake's face fell as he read the words. The lightheartedness that usually danced in his eyes dimmed to horror, and for a fleeting second, he looked like a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar. I can explain." He stuttered, desperation oozing from every pore. An urgent thought plagued Emma. If she shielded him now, would she only be delaying the inevitable? But could she truly watch her son descend deeper into this abyss? As she wrestled internally, she felt the encroaching weight of their family lineage. The patterns passed down from generations haunted her. She thought of Mrs. Thompson, the wise neighbor, whose own family battles had shaped Emma into who she was today. Maybe there was still a chance to navigate this storm with some semblance of grace. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jake explained through shaky breaths, drowning in his lies, Emma's resolve began to deepen. Could she really send him into an uncertain future alone, or would she have to bear this weight alongside him? Anguish welled up within her as fragments of his explanation crashed against her conscience, painting a picture darker than she could ever imagine. Suddenly, the air thickened with an undeniable truth. Trust, once sacred between mother and son, now hung by a thread. A knock at the door interrupted the heavy silence, the sound slicing through the tension like a knife. Emma looked toward the door, dread settling in. Whoever it was, she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would change everything. The door creaked open, revealing a figure that sent a chill down Emma's spine. It was Mark, one of Jake's friends, but his presence felt more like an omen than a reassurance. The way he stood there, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, suggested he, too, carried shadows that were about to break into the light. "Hey, Mrs. Miller," he mumbled hesitantly, his eyes darting between her and Jake. There was an unspoken understanding between the boys, one that Emma couldn't quite place but felt deep within her gut. Jake's expression twisted into something she couldn't define. Was it guilt or something more complicated? "What do you want, Mark?" she asked, her voice sharper than she intended. Emotions rolled through her like a tempest, her protective instincts battling with her desire for clarity. I just came to check on Jake. Heard some stuff, from school." The nervous energy in Mark's voice simmered. Emma felt her grip on the envelope tighten, a confusing blend of instinct and instinctual anger. "Stop. Just stop." Jake exploded, his previously painted facade cracking under the pressure. "I'm fine, Mark. You shouldn't have come here. Emma watched her son closely, the flicker of rage in his eyes igniting a primal urge to function as both a shield and a sword. Fine. You think it's fine to get wrapped up in all this? Mark gestured feebly toward the envelope. This isn't just a debt. It's going to ruin everything. It was as if someone had dropped a lit match on a pile of dry leaves. Emma felt the second stretch like an elastic band about to snap. Could she bear to let everything spiral out of control? Mom, I need you to understand. Jake's voice trembled, yet there was resolve beneath his fear. Mark, he didn't mean to come here. I made choices. Just give me a second to explain. Choices? Emma interjected, her heart racing with equal parts anguish and disbelief. Jake, this isn't just about you anymore. You've brought this burden into our lives. But there was a part of her, buried beneath layers of motherly protectiveness, that craved to really understand what led her son down a path filled with shadows. Every lie he told, every app he installed on that laptop, what drove him? Was he simply lost, or was this part of something more insidious that had crept into their lives without warning? Jake, please, she whispered, the tremor in her voice turning to softness. You need to trust me. I can help you, but I need you to be honest. As she spoke, Emma felt the weight of that envelope shift in her hand, becoming a symbol of their fractured relationship. Could they rebuild trust, or was it too late? I wanted to build something, Jake confessed suddenly, his voice breaking. I thought I could make things better for us. I didn't want it to end up like this. How could you think debt and deception would make anything better? The heartbreak in her tone was palpable, echoing throughout the room. Because, Mark interjected, shifting uneasily, he thought he could invest in a gaming startup. Get us all out of this life. At that moment, something clicked inside Emma. This wasn't just about the money, it was about identity, choices, and the desperate run toward acceptance in a world that often felt unloving and rejecting. The three remained silent, the gravity of their emotions hanging heavy in the air, a tense tableau of conflict and desperation. As the reality of the situation settled, Emma realized that navigating this path would demand more strength than she had ever envisioned, but what she didn't know at that moment was just how far Jake had gone and what revelations lay ahead that would change everything. With the weight of the situation crashing down on her, Emma felt the chill of financial ruin and crumbled trust. She faced the decision that could either save or further damage their already tenuous bond. It's time to confront the truth, she thought, tension knotting in her stomach. Whatever it takes. But was she prepared for the fallout? As the three stood together, an uneasy alliance formed. She could sense the storm brewing just outside their doorstep, beckoning them to confront the winds of change about to sweep through their lives. Would they withstand the storm, or would it drown them in its depths? Jake's breath hitched in the aftermath of his confession, the air between them thick with the unspoken fears swarming inside Emma's mind. A gaming startup? She felt the words tumble out, as if teasing the truth from the tangled web of deception. Tell me you weren't serious about this. I thought it'd be different, Jake mumbled, unwilling to meet her eyes. Everyone talks about making it big, Mom. It's all anyone at school cares about who's going to be the next big thing. I wanted to be part of that. Her heart cracked and splintered at the realization her son was tangled in a world that could only bring him further harm. But even as the sympathy surged within, resentment flickered like a flame. And what about the consequences? Did you think this wouldn't impact us, that your choices wouldn't have repercussions? Mark shifted, discomfort evident in his posture, lingering in the background like a ghost. He didn't mean for it to spiral this way, he offered, his voice barely above a whisper. We thought we could handle it. Handle it? The incredulity choked Emma's words. You thought you could handle a debt like this? What were you thinking? I was thinking about being someone. Jake's voice rose to a near shout, desperation and defiance merging into one. I wanted to give us a life that isn't just normal. I thought maybe it'd all work out. At that moment, Emma could see the boy her son once was buried beneath the weight of decisions he was too young to make. The impulsive spirits of adolescence thrived in Jake, his longing for acceptance and recognition pushing him toward an abyss. Have you thought about how this looks for your future? She continued, her tone tinged with urgency. The colleges, the job opportunities, everything is at stake now. He faltered, his bravado slipping like water through clenched fists. What do I do now? I can't go back. None of this is who I wanted to be. Emma wanted to reach out, to soothe the chaos raging inside him. It can be who you want to be, but you have to take responsibility for it first. Not just for yourself, but for us. Jake's shoulders slumped, as though the gravity of her words pulled him deeper into his fears. How can I fix this? It was more a plea than a question, a flicker of hope desperately searching for reassurance. We'll figure it out together, she said, feeling her resolve solidify. But the first step is owning up to this mess. We need to face those who can help. We must be honest, including with ourselves. Jake met her gaze, the wall that had risen between them beginning to crack. What about Mark? He doesn't need to be dragged into this. Mark chose this, too. He needs to be part of the solution, just like you, Emma responded firmly, recalling the strange bond she'd sensed between the boys. Both had walked into this storm, and perhaps together they could weather the aftermath. An unspoken pact formed in the air, a silent acknowledgement that this wouldn't merely be about paying off the debt but about emerging from the shadows of their collective choices. Emma felt the tension in the room shift, the beginnings of a path unfurling before them like dawn breaking after a long night. But as they moved toward the light, Emma understood there was more to unravel. She could feel the hesitant threads tugging at her, warning of hidden complications simmering underneath the surface. Tonight, we talk to your father, Emma declared decisively. He needs to know everything. The realization was heavy and daunting. The possibility of revealing their family's secrets opened a chasm. Would Jake be able to bear yet another truth? The look exchanging between them didn't show excitement, it was apprehensive and tense. Yet Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this was the chance to reclaim something lost, to rebuild trust from the ground up. As they prepared to confront the unknown, an icy tendril of fear latched onto her heart. What other surprises awaited them beyond honesty? Ready or not, they were going to face all consequences together. The urgency settled in as her instincts kicked. The stakes were high, and the stakes would only rise as the night unfolded. But was facing their truths truly the most dangerous part yet, or was there worse on the horizon? The atmosphere in the room thickened, a mixture of anticipation and dread hanging in the air as Emma braced for the conversation that lay ahead. Jake's shoulders were tense, and his gaze flickered to the door as if contemplating escape. She felt the weight of the responsibility resting heavily on her, but she also sensed this was their crucible, a moment they would either forge themselves anew or shatter completely. Are you ready for this? She asked, her voice steady, offering him a lifeline. Jake nodded, although the uncertainty in his eyes suggested otherwise. He was caught between wanting to take ownership of his choices and the paralyzing fear of potential repercussions. I guess there's no other way. Exactly. Facing it is the only way forward. Emma briefly recalled her own mistakes, decisions born from impulsivity and a desperate desire for acceptance. They had led her to lands unconquered yet familiar, trails she now sincerely wished to guide her son away from. As they headed toward the living room, where Mark was waiting, the thought crossed Emma's mind that they were stepping into an unpredictable storm. Would sharing the truth bring change, or would it embroil them deeper into chaos? Either way, it was clear that growth required confronting what had been buried too long. Mark looked up as they entered, his expression unreadable. You two ready? Yeah, we're ready, Jake muttered, though Emma could see the storm brewing within him. They sat down together, and Emma took a breath, gathering the courage necessary to navigate this treacherous conversation. Jake and I have something important to share. We made some mistakes, Jake inserted abruptly. Big ones. Emma felt a surge of pride and fear coursing through her. This was Jake's moment to reclaim his narrative, the true essence of personal ownership. Mark's eyebrows rose in surprise, but he remained silent, sensing the gravity of the situation. It's about the startup, Jake said, his voice shaky, the facade beginning to crumble. The investment, it got out of hand. And now we have debt. A lot of it. The words hung in the air like a heavy damper, and Emma could see the shock seep into Mark's demeanor. His mouth opened slightly in disbelief. Debt? How much are we talking? You mean 900,000. The bluntness of the figure was an arrow piercing through the tension, amplifying the anxiety that had settled in like a malignant fog. Mark's expression shifted from shock to concern, and then more deeply, to anger. You're joking. That kind of money doesn't just appear from nowhere. No, it doesn't, Emma interjected, worried they would lose control of the situation. But it did. We understand the consequences, Mark. We need to figure this out as a family. Family? Mark echoed bitterly. This isn't about family. You've put us all at risk. Emma could feel her heart racing, the frustration rising. This was supposed to be about healing and progress, yet here they were caught in a growing tide of blame. Mark, we can't change what's done. We have to focus on moving forward. We need a plan, and I am afraid that sitting here and arguing doesn't help, she urged, desperation lacing her words. With every passing second, the tension escalated. Mark's face twisted in conflicted emotions, anger mixed with fear of losing something he had worked hard to preserve. What about college? Scholarships? No school is going to take you seriously when they see this on your record, Jake. Jake shrank under the torrent of judgment. It punctured the fleeting courage he had found, threatening to engulf him. I know. I messed up. But I don't want to stay stuck like this. I want to be better. Emma reached out, placing a hand on Jake's back, wishing to fortify him. We can take control of this situation, but it starts with owning our mistakes and figuring out how to repay it. We'll find ways around this, but we have to stick together. The raw honesty of their admissions ignited a tentative resolve, but Emma was acutely aware of the fractures forming beneath the surface. How could they begin to rebuild when the foundations were already compromised? The room seemed to vibrate with unspoken decisions, unresolved tensions swirling around them like an impending storm. Before Emma could voice her thoughts on how they would tackle the impending fallout together, the doorbell echoed through the tense atmosphere, shattering their fragile equilibrium. Jake's eyes widened in fear, uncertainty mounting. Who was that? The ominous presence of unanswered questions loomed over the family. Emma's heart raced, heavy with the realization that whatever lay beyond that door could change everything again. Would they emerge stronger, or would the next wave of their discontent push them over the edge? Emma's instincts tightened as the doorbell transformed into a bell tolling for their family's future. She exchanged a glance with Jake, whose youthful eyes mirrored her own apprehension. The room, already at capacity with dread, now felt impossibly condensed, as if the air itself conspired against them. Stay here, Emma instructed firmly, despite her own uncertainty. She could see both curiosity and fear etched on Jake's face as he nodded, his shoulders sagging. Approaching the door was akin to stepping onto a cliff's edge, every pulse echoed her rising tension. As she opened it, her heart thumped like a restless drum. There on the porch stood a woman, gracefully frail but with an undeniable strength in her eyes. She held an envelope, its edges taut and neatly pressed, as if the weight inside had become part of her essence. Is this the Knoll family? The woman asked, her voice steady, yet tinged with an unspoken sorrow. Emma hesitated, the reply hesitating on her lips, contemplating the possibilities. Yes, that's us. What can we do for you? I'm here about the business venture, she replied, scanning the room behind Emma, feeling the invisible heat of familial dread. It's about the debt. A chill coursed through Emma, acceptance dawning at the enormity of the moment. What do you mean? The woman stepped forward, handing Emma the envelope. I know this is difficult, but it's important you understand everything contained within this. The consequences. They are serious. Emma took the envelope, feeling its weight, as if it contained not merely papers but hopes and grievances entwined. She caught a glimpse of Jake fidgeting in the living room, his face a storm of emotions. The specter of confrontation loomed, yet every instinct told her that this was pivotal. As Emma turned back, studying the woman's composed demeanor, She caught a gleam of sympathy mixed with hardened resolve. You have options, the woman pressed. But time is short and clarity is crucial. Options for the debt? She whispered, feeling the gravity of the situation pulling her down. You mean to negotiate? The woman nodded, but the faint sadness in her eyes told Emma that negotiations rarely led to friendly resolutions. Everything about her tone, her posture suggested she had encountered this scenario more than once. I suggest you gather your family and decide how to move forward. Admission is just the beginning, she said, her gaze lingering on Jake through the window. The sooner you face this, the better chance you'll have to find a solution. What do you mean? Emma asked, her mind scrambling for answers and strategies. What if I've seen families torn apart by the weight of such choices? The woman's voice softened, grounding Emma yet amplifying her anxiety. You need to break the cycle of blame. Unity and honesty will lead you through this. Emma's mind whirled, fragments of her past colliding with the present. She thought of her own parents, the silence that had festered, and how their unspoken truths became shackles for the next generation. As the woman turned to leave, Emma's voice emerged before she could second-guess it. Wait. Can you help us? The woman paused, her back to Emma, a flicker of something compassion crossed her face. Only if you're willing to be honest, even with yourselves. With a quiet nod, the door closed, and Emma's heart sank under the weight of her reality. She returned to Jake, bearing the envelope like a testimony of their mistakes. The moment felt thick with the tension of what was to come, the air crackling with electric anticipation. Who was that? Jake asked, eyes darting to the envelope. With a trembling hand, Emma placed it on the table. A chance, maybe, but it could also mean making choices we're not ready to face. The room shifted, and as Emma glanced at Mark, the specter of blame resurfacing in their shared gaze, she realized they stood on the precipice of discovery. How each family member confronted their responsibility would define not just this moment but the path forward. She could see Jake's resolve hardening, his innate desire to rectify wrongs igniting a flicker of hope within the chaos. Yet the lingering doubts tugged at Emma, challenging her to confront her apprehensions while aiding Jake in his quest for redemption. Inside her, a gnawing realization blossomed: vulnerability could spark unity, and from that flame, growth could emerge. But would they channel the nervous energy into clarity or let fear drive them further apart? With the night stretching before them like an uncharted territory, Emma understood they had only begun to scratch the surface of their challenges. The next step, whatever it may be, loomed larger than life. Let us lay everything on the table, she said, her voice anchored with newfound conviction. No more hiding. But the shadows of their past whispered louder now, teasing at the corners of her mind. As they gathered around the table to confront their truths, a tense undertone persisted, leaving Emma to wonder what was truly lurking behind those open, honest discussions. What unexamined truths awaited to be unearthed still, ready to reshape their lives in ways they could never anticipate. As the flickering light bulb above cast restless shadows across the table, Emma felt her heart thrumming like a metronome, setting the pace for the cascade of revelations she believed were imminent. The envelope lay between them, a silent negotiator poised to dictate their future. Before we go any further, she began, her voice straining under the weight of uncertainty, we need to understand exactly what we're facing. This isn't just about confronting a debt. It's about confronting ourselves. Each word carved a deeper realization that the dynamics of their family had long been shaped by unspoken grievances. Jake's cherubic face twisted in confusion. What do you mean? Did she say how much we owe? Emma felt her ownership of the moment slip slightly, recognizing the boy's desperate need to grasp the enormity of the situation. Yet, truth, she knew, was a dual-edged sword that could slice through their ignorance but might also shatter any remaining innocence. Yes, she did, she offered, swallowing hard, but it's not just about the money. It's about the choices we've made, the decisions that led us here. Mark chuckled hollowly, the sound a discordant note in the charged atmosphere. Choices? What choices? You mean the ones where we trusted the wrong people? His anger surged, a protective barrier instinctively raised around the fractures in his own ego. That's exactly it. Emma countered, her frustration mingling with a surge of clarity. This isn't just about missteps, it's about how we let those missteps define us. We can change this narrative if we start being honest. The room grew faintly warmer, the tension smoothened by Emma's growing resolve. Each family member wore their skepticism like a well-fitted mask, defensive yet distinctly vulnerable. Can we face what lies ahead? Can we shift the notion that we are simply victims in this? Silence engulfed them, yet her words danced in the air, teasing their unexpressed emotions. Jake broke the stillness first, his voice quivering like an uncertain flame. "Mom, what do you want us to do?" Emma looked into Jake's expectant eyes, seeing the potent mixture of fear and hope. "I want you to think about what it means to be a family. It's more than just sharing a house or sharing a last name. It means being honest with each other, holding each other accountable for both our failures and our triumphs." Mark shifted uneasily, grappling with feelings that were growing more complex by the minute. "I've never wanted to face what we've done or who we've become. What if honesty just tears us apart?" The challenge in his tone prompted Emma to confront her own fears surrounding vulnerability. "Or it could bring us together," she argued, her voice steadying with each utterance. "Imagine if we could confront this head-on instead of allowing it to weigh us down. We have a chance to redefine our family narrative. Isn't that worth fighting for?" Yet doubts skimmered beneath the surface. The journey was poised as unpredictable and filled with pitfalls. Emma's mantra echoed with haunting clarity. The risk of honesty was an open road, yet the dangers diverged into too many dark corners. "Let us start with what we know," she suggested. "Let us each take a turn to lay out our part in this mess. Hold nothing back. We can sort through our emotions and let the chips fall as they may." Jake nodded, emboldened by Emma's willingness to take action, while Mark's expression clouded, exposing the enormity of participation. This was the moment where they could each uncover the burdens they carried alone and entwined. As the atmosphere thickened with anticipation, Emma braced herself for the cascade of revelations that would undoubtedly follow. Would they descend into chaotic blame, or could they weave a new alliance against their common adversary, the debt looming over them all? Mark cleared his throat, seemingly ready to break the silence. "Fine," he began, his voice laden with apprehension. "I'll start." But before he could continue, the tension in the air shifted, electric and uncertain. Emma wondered what shadows would materialize from this confessional. What unacknowledged truths would force them to reconsider everything they believed about themselves, each other, and their collective future? Emma held her breath as Mark prepared to speak, each second stretching painfully. The unease in the room danced like pendulum, measuring their unresolved issues against the harsh metal of truth. She sought to manage her expectations, aware that what lay ahead would either deepen their divide or begin to forge new pathways toward understanding. "All right," Mark's voice finally broke through the silence, steadying itself as if attempting to take charge of the conversation. "Here's how I see it. We made mistakes, sure. But I'm tired of pretending like it was all just bad luck. To be honest, I've ignored our financial situation for too long. I guess I just thought it would sort itself out." The confession sat heavily between them, a weighty expectation that demanded a reciprocal share in vulnerability. Emma saw flickers of pain in his eyes, and a surge of compassion stirred within her. She recognized this moment as pivotal, a chance to transcend their individual landscapes of failure for the collective confidence of their family. But vulnerability was a game played on a razor's edge. Would he step forward courageously, or retreat behind his defenses? "Why didn't you come to us sooner? We could have faced this together," she pressed, her voice gentle but firm, recognizing the dual potential for healing or further estrangement. Mark flinched as if slapped, his face hardening. "You don't get it, do you? I was scared, Emma. Scared of judgment, scared of failing you all." The fight he redirected only sharpened the mutual shadows pooling in the corners of their words. "You're not alone in this," Emma murmured, desperate to pull him back from that ledge of isolation. "None of us are. We've all been scared, Mark." Jake shifted restlessly, the turmoil of adolescence mingling with the gravity of their discussion. "So what is it then? Can we really fix this?" A thread of hope unfurled in Emma's chest, linking her to her son. His voice carried none of the distrust that had pervaded their home. It spoke of a desire to heal. Fixing this goes beyond money, Emma interjected. We need to confront our communication gaps as much as the debts. We owe it to ourselves. The realization surged within their little trio. The conversation had become a mirror, reflecting both their flaws and their potential for reinvention. Mark seemed to relax then, as if acknowledging that vulnerability could dismantle the barrier he had built. Okay, I admit I've been in denial. But it's scary not knowing how to face what's coming. The admission brought a pause, a brief moment to breathe, to digest the shared weight. Look, we start here, Emma whispered, pulling them back to the present, by accepting our failures. Each of us needs to share what we think our role has been in this mess. Then, together, we can decide what steps to take next. Shifting gears, each took turns recounting their contributions, right and wrong. As they navigated through the murky waters of blame and accountability, pieces began to fall into place. With every confession, Emma caught glimpses of resolve wrapped within stories of shame, illuminating unheard strengths. Each revelation fortified not just their family ties but also awakened dormant facets of their characters' resilience, empathy, and responsibility. At last, Mark shifted once more, emboldened by the catharsis of shared secrets. I failed to protect our family's future. But confessing made me realize I can own this, amend it, and still be a part of the solution. I don't want to let fear dictate my choices any longer. Tension loosened its vice over the room. Emma felt a warmth rising within her, an undercurrent of hope ignited by honesty. They were engaging not just in a dialogue but a renewal, a chance to redefine who they were at their core. But beneath the surface of this newfound clarity, an unsettling question lingered. Was it enough to confront their inner turmoil? Would the choices they made in the coming weeks be their salvation or their curse? Shadows of doubt brushed at the fringes of Emma's mind, whispering the possibility of further entanglement. She glanced at her family, a chill crept along her spine, a sense of impending conflict still lay ahead, lurking in the corners of their growing bonds. The choice to come together had been made, but where would it inevitably lead them? Emma's determination surged once more. She was ready to face whatever came next. Let us not stop now, she urged, igniting the spark. We need to plan our next steps. Our family is worth fighting for, she concluded. The resolve shared could have power. But an unshakable truth shadowed her inner thoughts. The road ahead was still beset with numerous uncertainties, battles they had yet to fight, entangled relationships that might either flower anew or disintegrate. As the evening dragged onwards, Emma couldn't help but wonder, what was the price of their unity, and would there be further revelations that could threaten their fragile equilibrium? Emma's sense of urgency heightened as she tucked the various thoughts racing in her mind into a corner for later reflection. Tonight marked a turning point, one she believed would pull her family back from the brink of despair. Yet, the lingering shadows of previous failures cast doubt on her conviction. After decades of accumulating mishaps, could they genuinely shift the trajectory of their lives? The room felt smaller as they sat in silence, the walls seeming to close in, bearing witness to their revelations. She glanced at Jake, whose youthful face now mirrored the weight of adulthood. For years, his laughter had echoed through their home, but tonight the air thickened with uncertainty. She recognized that while she needed to lead, her adolescent son needed assurances that everything would be all right. Jake, do you feel comfortable sharing your thoughts? Emma prompted gently, shifting the focus. She realized that including his perspective could solidify this fragile camaraderie they were building. The hesitation in Jake's eyes was palpable. After all, guiding an emotional conversation was an alien territory for him. I'm just worried, he finally admitted. About school, about my future. And about us. He clenched his hands, drawing the strength to expose his vulnerability. Emma's heart ached at his confession. Jake's worries reflected her own, and she felt the significant responsibility of motherhood tighten its grip on her chest. I understand. But we can only face the future together, one honest conversation at a time. Encouraged by Emma's compassion, Mark joined in. That's true, buddy. We can't let fear dominate our decisions. We have each other. That's our biggest asset right now. Emma felt they were cobbling together a support network, but uncertainty still loomed large. Mark's past inattention had bred not just financial issues but emotional detachment. This intimacy, while nourishing, had the potential to crack under pressure. Would Mark's missteps surface again with newfound pressure? Maybe we should consider professional help, Emma suggested, eyeing Mark for his reaction. It wasn't about admitting failure but harnessing resources to bolster their strategy. A therapist? Mark questioned, digesting the suggestion carefully. Emma noted the tension in his jaw and wondered if he viewed this as another assault on his stoic masculinity. She pressed on, softer this time, not as a weakness, but as a strength. We need tools to communicate better. We've built walls around ourselves, and to break them down, we might need guidance. Mark's expression softened slightly, the hesitance from before giving way to contemplation. At that moment, Emma felt a shift. It was subtle, but the glimmer of acceptance seemed to spark between them. "All right," he said quietly, but his volume did little to mask the firmness in his voice. "I'm open to it." "Good," Emma nodded. A sense of burgeoning hope ignited within her, though it danced warily. The interplay of vulnerability and determination wove through the air, and she could almost taste the promise of renewed strength. However, as the conversation deepened, her mind often lurched back to the daunting shadows that still lurked in the distance. After a few more candid exchanges, Emma excused herself to the back porch, seeking a moment of solitude away from the intensity piling up in the living room. The stars spread before her like shimmering reminders of every wish she had ever made. Breathing in the cool night air, her thoughts spiraled back to finances. Were their debts lurking, waiting to spring upon them once again like a hidden predator? The uncertainty felt like a constant companion, always looming, always unsettling. They had made progress, but how fragile those initial moments of connection felt, a mere flicker against the gusts of the issues still unaddressed. Emma tightly closed her eyes, feeling the weight of so many unanswered questions. Was seeking professional help just addressing the symptoms? What if there were deeper truths just waiting to erupt? She returned indoors, steeling herself for what might come next. "We need to set some expectations," she declared as she stepped back into their midst, the shadows of doubt holding their breath. Policy shifts, financial planning, and dealing with any lingering debts, together. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air, the gravity of their choices pressing down on them like fog. Would they unravel the tangled threads of miscommunication, or would it send them spiraling deeper into darkness? As the conversation shifted from dealings of the heart to practicalities, a sensation flickered anew in Emma's chest. A slow, cautious optimism had taken root. Perhaps it could blossom into something more profound, but an odd tension hovered on the edges of her mind. Had she overlooked something? With their fragility now exposed, what dangers could resurface, or had they even begun to unearth them? The evening's revelations had transformed her family dynamic. The question was now whether they were truly equipped to face what lay ahead, or would they find themselves unearthing hidden treasures or even buried demons that could push them even further apart. The first light of dawn painted the horizon with soft hues of peach and lavender, yet Emma awoke to a harrowing weight still pressing on her chest. The conversations from the night before played on a loop in her head. She had dared to hope, but that hope now felt precarious, an all too delicate teeter on the edge of uncertainty. As she prepared for the day, Emma eyed the growing pile of unopened bills on the kitchen table. Each envelope felt like a ghost of her financial past, a reminder of miscalculations and neglect. She often wished for a reset button, a chance to make different choices. But the true test was not in looking back, it was in facing what lay ahead. "Mom?" Jake's voice cut through her thoughts, and she turned to see his face drawn with an unusual trepidation. "Can we talk?" Emma nodded, feeling the familiar knot tighten in her stomach at the prospect of yet another serious conversation. They settled at the kitchen table, and she braced herself for the unknown. She could sense that Jake had absorbed the emotional upheaval from the previous night, but would he also carry new revelations, burdens, or perhaps untapped bravery into their dialogue? "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday about needing to face things together," he began slowly, his brows knitted in concentration. "How can we truly fix our problems if I don't even feel like I know what is going on?" The sincerity of his question struck deep, leaving Emma in awe of her son's transparency. Here was Jake, a young man still finding his footing, yet he demanded clarity in a home that had thrived on ambiguity. "You're right, Jake. It's important for us to share what has been happening," she replied, more firmly than she felt. Emma took a deep breath and steeled herself to open up about their company's financial issues, the looming debts, and the sheer complexity of their situation. "There are challenges we face, ones that I thought I could manage on my own. But we stand a better chance when everyone knows the truth." As she spoke, she noticed the tight line of her son's mouth soften gradually. "Would it help if we had a plan?" he ventured, challenging her to think outside the box. "We could tackle things together." His willingness to create a solution sparked something within her, a ray of hope. "Yes. We can start by listing the debts and exploring how to prioritize them." "You'd be surprised at how much a structured approach can help," she responded, constructing plans with newfound purpose. But within, she wrestled with the notion of letting her child shoulder parts of her burden. The conversation had shifted inexorably, awakening a sense of agency that Emma hadn't expected from Jake. But then, as he rummaged through his backpack, a new concern arose. What if this conversation turned into something heavier? Was she ready to handle a fresh outpouring of his worries layered alongside existing tensions? Though her heart raced, she decided to guide the dialogue with the same honesty she asked of him. "It's easy to feel overwhelmed, as an adult and as a teenager. We can't fix everything overnight, but sharing feels like the right step forward." Jake looked up, eyes wide with urgency. "What about Dad? Are we going to brave those conversations too?" Emma hesitated, calculating the ramifications of bringing Mark into this cooperative renewal. She could sense Jake holding on to an ideal, the possibility of a unified family, a dream that felt both daunting and tantalizing. "Yes, but it has to happen in a way that respects what he's ready to confront. This will require patience and a unified front from us." The space grew heavy with the realization of what was soon to unfold. Emma felt the stakes rise sharply. They could unearth buried dreams or resurrect untold fears. A sudden thought struck her: what would happen if Mark reacted differently than expected? Just then, Jake produced an envelope from his backpack, his expression transforming from apprehension to determination. "I uncovered something yesterday. I thought you should see it." He slid it across the table, and as Emma's fingers brushed the paper, a chill ran through her. An unexpected surprise awaited within 900,000 in debt? She paused, the world around her collapsing under the weight of reality. The enormity of the revelation clattered in her mind. Was this the hidden truth that had remained buried within their family, just waiting to explode into consciousness? How could they regroup from such a devastation? This singular moment threatened to unravel everything they had begun to build. In that instant, Emma felt the walls of their optimism closing in. The journey toward recovery now presented even deeper questions, shoving them into uncharted territory. Would they find healing amidst this sweeping tidal wave of chaos, or would it push them further apart until all hope was lost? The air grew thick with possibility and trepidation as Emma braced herself for what would come next. The edges of uncertainty nipped at her resolve. This was not just the unveiling of debt, it was the catalyst for a potentially fracturing revelation, one that would fundamentally challenge everything they sought to achieve together. Emma sat at the kitchen table with Jake, the weight of the previous night's revelations still constricting the air between them. The envelope lay between them, almost pulsating with the gravity of their circumstances. It was impossible to ignore the staggering burden of their financial reality, yet as she looked at her son, she realized that truth, painful as it was, had initiated a profound transformation within him. "Jake, this isn't just about the debt anymore," she asserted, her voice steadying with clarity she hadn't known she possessed. "This is about taking ownership of who we are and where we're headed. We can't go back, but we can harness what we've learned to move forward." He nodded slowly, digesting her words like a lifeline in turbulent waters. "So where do we start?" His youthful hunger for solutions ignited something inside Emma. A spark of hope flickered, challenging the shadows that lingered from their troubled past. "First, we will gather everything together. We need to fully understand the entirety of our situation, every bill, every debt," she responded with decisive fervor. "Transparency is the first step to finding clarity." As Jake began to scribble down the particulars they knew, Emma reflected on how far they had come. A few nights prior, they had stood on the precipice of despair, torn apart by uncertainty and fear. Now, they were beginning to forge a path. Together, when Mark entered the room, his expression quickly shifted upon seeing the gathering of papers and the tense atmosphere. "What is going on?" he asked, the concern in his voice undeniable. "We're addressing the debt," Jake said, his tone layered with a newfound confidence. "Mom's right, we need to stop hiding from it and start facing it head-on." Mark's brow furrowed, skepticism creeping into his features. "You think this is just going to resolve itself because you're throwing out names on paper?" "We're in deep." "We know," Emma said, bringing their focus back to reality. "But understanding our liabilities is crucial. We can't keep treating this like a bottomless pit. If we work together, we make an action plan." The challenge, had Mark really come prepared to engage with them, to join this journey of accountability? She could see the wheels turning in his mind, calculating options and consequences. "All right," he said finally, his voice resolute but cautious. "I'll help. But we'll also have to address how we got here. Denial can't be part of our recovery." The conversation shifted as they began to lay everything out: the debts, the missteps, the promises they had broken, both to one another and to themselves. Step by step, they found structure amidst chaos. Emma felt every layer of blame peel away, sliding into the background as each admission drew them closer to unity rather than division that it was empowering to confront the reality together. With each shaded item on the list, the path to resolution became clearer. Their collaborative effort reflected Emma's own development. She realized that not only could she acknowledge her mistakes, she could also accept and support the mistakes made by others. It was a significant shift, transformative growth that sought to build bridges rather than walls. As they uncovered each financial burden, Emma felt recognition blossom in the group. When Mark shared his own regrets about avoiding conversations, Jake nodded, mirroring the pain of their mutual vulnerabilities. "We all contributed to this. Let us not ignore the past, but use it to fuel a stronger future," Jake said, the determination in his voice echoing through the room, and within that space, Emma felt her insecurities fade. She was a guiding force, a counselor not only to herself but to her family. They were reprogramming their narratives, breathing new life into conversations that had previously earned hostility. "Let us make this commitment," she proposed, the conviction solidifying in her core. "We meet every week to review our progress, reaffirm our goals, and communicate openly. If we slip, whether in finances or trust, we put it all on the table." In that moment, Emma felt solid confidence instead of dread. She had created not only a plan but also a safe space where discussions could open pathways to deeper understanding. Her emotional landscape shifted, recognizing that the vulnerability she had long feared could also be a source of strength, the bedrock of a family forged anew. Jake's face glimmered with courage. "I might not be perfect, but I want us to work. I want us to succeed. Then we take this journey together," Emma affirmed, a wave of satisfaction washing over her. "Whatever comes our way, we'll face it head-on, as a family." Mark joined in then, the tension from before unraveling further. "I'm in. Let us rediscover who we are as a family. No more running." This was the moment of change they had all needed, acceptance redefined through new lenses of hope and aspiration. As Emma moved through the tasks of the day, a distinct sense of clarity encapsulated her mind. She exchanged small glances with Jake and Mark throughout their discussions. The bond once laden with mistrust was becoming a bridge of accountability and growth. Reflecting on her personal evolution, she marveled at how estrangement could transform into powerful alliance simply through choice, through foresight and realization that every journey is built one step at a time. And as they put their plans into action, Emma could finally breathe again. She was stepping confidently into the future, unshackled from the burdens that had once shackled her heart. Together, they would soar beyond the mistakes, embracing the growth waiting to be realized. The path ahead was long, but Emma had a family beside her, each of them ready to embrace their own agency, a solid partnership in navigating whatever came next. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment their reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Let us grow this community together.